All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back into another Mancast, episode 17. Ed and Chad coming back at you for another one. This one's called Win in a Banana Republic, Make Banana Bread. So we're going to break some eggs, make some omelets. You got to use eggs and some banana bread. You got to use a bunch of ingredients in banana bread. But if you're going to know anything about the recipe, you're going to have to know where the recipe came from. So let's talk a little bit about the history of banana republics, because that's what I'm talking about today. We ain't talking about bread. We're talking about the illegal shenanigans that often go on in places like recently Brazil, where the president or the leader of the country arrests and imprisons, and in this case is trying to imprison their top political rival. With that, what say you, Ed?
Well, it's banana nut bread because of all the fucking nut cases. We got to add the nuts in there too. Well, as long as you're talking about Brazil, we could throw Venezuela in there. They're a lovely banana republic as well. And he did imprison all of his political opponents. And of course, the largest banana republic the world has ever seen is the United States of America, which is currently a banana republic because we have an administration now doing the exact same thing that those asshats are doing to his political rival, in this particular case, the ex-president, Donald Trump. And what is going on is loathsome and disgusting. Every single American in this country should be supremely outraged that this is even occurring. It is a farce. There is no law that he has broken, and they know that there is no law that he has broken. And on top of that, there is actually judicial precedence for him to be able to do what he did. And there is no judicial precedent for a then Senator Joe Biden or Vice President Joe Biden or Secretary of State, next Senator Hillary Clinton, to be able to do the exact same thing. They actually should have been prosecuted for what they did. They never were. And now this is again, banana republic bullshit. This is all false. It is fake. It is completely made up. We are the largest joke that the earth has ever seen. And every single voting American, fuck that. Every single American, regardless of whether they can vote or not, should be so embarrassed to be a part of this country right now.
The thing is, as far as like handling the documents are concerned, and you said that there is some precedent that would back Trump up, certainly not, people who weren't the executive. And I would say that the precedent is loose as far as the backing of Trump is concerned, because it just has never really been adjudicated, because we've never actually like taken a president himself to court for such a thing. We have taken people underneath the president. We've taken somebody that worked for the president,
Navy versus Egan,
and we've adjudicated whether or not they were allowed to handle that document per the president's purview. But we've never taken the president himself. Reagan was not in the hot seat. It was the man who worked under him in Egan.
But actually, Amy Berman Jackson, who was the federal judge on the Clinton sock drawer case, said, and I'm quoting her, that the president has absolute unreviewable right to take any records, documents that he wants when he leaves office, end quote.
Correct.
To continue, she then says, no one can come back and second guess or double think or even question the president about what, I'm going to make sure I got that right. Sorry, guys. No one can come back, second guess, or double think or ask questions about what the president-elect to take with him. The president enjoys unconstrained authority to make decisions regarding the disposal of documents. Although the president must notify the archivist before disposing of records, neither the archivist nor Congress has the authority to veto the president's disposal decision, end quote. That seems pretty clear to me.
Except for they're going to use the fact that the president must notify. And
she makes it very clear that as soon as the president leaves office with those records, it's already been done, whether he says it out loud or not.
But if he's going to do something with him, he has to notify the archives, does he not? They're going to try to use that part, and they're going to stretch it as far as they can to say that if he
Oh
was
no,
going to declassify them after the
there's
fact,
no
he would have to notify the
yeah,
archive.
there's no argument between you and I
There
that
is
they're
no cut and dry
absolutely going to be.
process for this. There's
Yeah, there
zero cut and dry process for
there
this.
there there's no doubt. Um, to me, this is very clear, but it doesn't matter. They're going to do it no matter what,
Mm,
anyhow, because they don't
right.
care. I mean, that's the whole point of this, right? This is what banana republics do. Here we
Mm.
have 200 plus years of precedence that we're just going to throw it all out the window because we just don't like you. And by the way, the rules and the laws only apply to you that don't apply to anybody else, except for in this case, no rules or laws have actually been broken. And because he was in good faith negotiating, the FBI and the Secret Service were guarding that place, and they came in, and all they said before the raid, just weeks before the raid, they said everything's good here. Can you just put an extra lock on this? That was it. And then they're raiding him. It was all it's, and he was negotiating in good faith. First off, Bill Clinton was out of office for 12 years in the Clinton sock drawer case, right? 12 years. And Obama, it took almost 6 years for them to make final negotiations with him. This president wasn't even out of office for even 2 years yet when all this started. It's absurd.
So for me, I don't even like none of it. I don't care about any of it. The whole thing for me is if if you're going to do this, it's just like I heard Ben Shapiro say today. You're you've opened the Pandora's box. You've crossed the line. You can't uncross it anymore. This is setting the stage for the Banana Republic. So even
Sure.
if you don't think we're there now, we're going to be there because this cat will now be out of the bag. If you're going to go ahead along with this prosecution of Donald Trump, the next Republican president that gets in is going to do the same shit. And, probably rightfully so. But if you're going to do it over classified documents, when we know the kind of silly shit that gets classified, um, just random shit.
I
And we
t-
know all the, what's that?
so our audience knows, because when we're saying all the classified documents, do you know that the White House lunch menu is a classified document? It's the
That's
White
what I'm
House
saying.
lunch menu is classified, people. So
Mm-hmm.
this is how ridiculous it is. So if they say they have these classified documents, some of them could be that he kept a menu from when he was in office. This is
Do you
absurd.
know what it is, Ed? I know exactly what he kept that they're pissed off about and that they're trying to get him for. Some of the transcripts from the whole indictment, they reveal the fact that he was telling somebody, I'm not sure who the witness was that he was talking to, whether it was recorded or it's a transcript of somebody's, recount of the situation. But they basically said that he was showing them documents of, it might have been Milley, but it was somebody high up in the Department of Defense urging him to start a war with Iran. And he said no. He repeatedly said no. And he had these documents showing where they were pressuring him to go to fight a full on invasion with Iran. And he was like, no, I'm not fucking doing that. And he this transcript shows him talking to these people about it. So I'm pretty sure that's the problem is we know the reason why they came after him from the jump is because he went against the military industrial complex. And B, I think the reason why they're going so hard for him now about these documents is because he was holding in possession documents that proved what the military industrial complex is trying to do and proved that Donald Trump was right for trying to not do those things.
Right. I'm sure that there are other things that are in his purview that they don't want ever to come to light. And part of that, the whole Banana Republic thing is this is what happens in a Banana Republic is desperate people do desperate things, and then they use um, their intelligence agencies to do their bidding for them, which is what has been going on right from the beginning. I mean, we know now. Um, without any question, and things that we have talked about that we have always known, but there was no proof. And we know now that that the DNC, the FBI, the Clintons' lawyers, and it is I don't want to in the CrowdStrike CEO and the owner of CrowdStrike, or the guy who started it, they all were in collusion with one another in this lie about Trump. And now that cat's out of the bag. That has recently come to light. We know for a fact that all of it is lies, and we know for a fact that Sussman, the Clintons' lawyer, and Sean Henry, the executive for CrowdStrike, both knowingly and deliberately lied to the FBI. And on top of that, the FBI allowed CrowdStrike to just simply say, yeah, we looked into that. You guys don't need to look into that. You don't need to do any forensics here. We did it for you. Here's the information.
Oh, and who hired CrowdStrike, Ed? Who hired CrowdStrike?
The Hillary Clinton's election campaign in the DNC.
So let's just reiterate this whole thing. So you got Comey today sitting in front of Congress, finally back in the limelight again for all the bullshit block he ran for the Clintons back in 2016. But he admitted in front of Congress today that the FBI not only asked the DNC for the server that had all of Hillary Clinton's emails on it, that supposedly was hacked by Russians, that's why Julian Assange got these emails, and that's why these emails were leaked, and therefore you can't believe them because Russia. You can't believe any of these emails from Hillary Clinton. You can't believe that they were classified or that she shouldn't even had them because Russia, which was all a lie from the jump street.
Right.
Russia did not hack them.
Because
somebody leaked them. A real whistleblower leaked them.
And that's because the oligarch who owns CrowdStrike is a Ukrainian and hates Putin. And wanted to start and get us involved.
Of the U.S.
Yeah, it's a puppet of the U.S. And this was all the beginning of this proxy war we're having right now.
Absolutely. So what happens is the FBI wants to get the DNC's, the server handed over from the DNC. The DNC's like, no, we're not going to do that. We'll get a private company to investigate it, okay? For some reason, the FBI is like, I guess so.
Yeah, sure, that'll work for me.
Win. I know the next time the FBI knocks on my door and they'll be like, hey, we think you got some illegal shit, and they'll be like, you know what? You guys just go away. I'm going to call some people I know. They have this really good investigative service. We'll let you know what they find, all right? And Ed, I'll be calling you, and you'll be coming to investigate. So anyway.
It's exactly what happened, basically.
So the Hillary Clinton campaign, they get a hold of CrowdStrike. They have CrowdStrike do the forensics on the server. Then the FBI hits up CrowdStrike, and they're okay. Now, can we have the server since you're done with it? And they're like, no. We'll give you our copy of the server. We're going to go ahead and give you, just wait, let us, nothing to see here. Here's a few months later, here's a copy of the server. We swear we didn't change anything.
And it's worse because they redacted information from the copy.
Not just that, then the FBI was like, okay, can you give us like a full like detail? Like, can you give us the report you did from the whole investigation you did? Forensics investigation has a really full report. They give him a very small summary, fully redacted, by the way.
Right.
Who gives redactions to the FBI, Ed? Who the fuck can do that? The Hillary Clinton campaign.
Well, the people who are in bed with the FBI to turn us into a banana republic. That's who.
Unbelievable, dude.
It is unbelievable. We're a joke. We're a joke. And we should be so, our government should be so ashamed of themselves, and they're not. And by the way, all day today, because obviously in our pre-production meeting this morning, we knew we were going to be talking about this stuff. So that was on my mind today. And I did some research and listened to some of the hearings, and they're so shameless. None of them care. And by the way, and this is something we've touched on recently because both of us are just so upset about it. No one's going to do anything about it. They have all the proof in the world, and they will do nothing. And here's why primarily they're not going to do anything about it is because the Republicans are also in bed with the people who actually make the decisions and run the government. You call it the deep state, you call it whatever the hell you want. But those people are in bed with them too. The Hawleys who call out the right people and do the right things, like Josh Hawley just last week got the FBI to admit that they were lying to them, and that the information that, and they've had this information about the Biden administration, Joe Biden himself taking a bribe for $5 million. And they've had it all along. They've had it for years, and they've done nothing with it, and they won't release it. And it's not even a classified material. And you know what Josh Hawley, armed with that information after his committee hearing last week, has done since then, which is now a week? Nothing. Not a single person's been subpoenaed. Nobody's going to do anything about it. We know that the FBI is an arm of the DNC now. That's what they are.
The Uni-Party.
And when I say DNC, well, between me and you, we both know. For the audience, DNC, RNC, it doesn't matter. Uni-Party is probably a better way to put it. They are all in this together. It is them versus us. That's what's really happening here. They are willing. They will burn you to the ground. They will kill your children. As a matter of fact, COVID-19, they tried to kill your children then. They try to kill you too. And if you're going to keep lining up for it, you deserve it.
So, there was that whole Comey report, and then he basically covered up the fact that they didn't even look at the servers themselves, and that CrowdStrike, was hired by the Hillary Clinton campaign, and they got to, make the call whether or not it was bad, whether or not it was good. So, so Comey is obviously bullshit, compromised. But then the Durham report came after that, right? Durham was supposed to come in and give it a much more, open-eyed, clear-eyed look at it, less partisan, blah, 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 blah.
To his credit, he's the one who uncovered this.
Well, no, he didn't uncover this. He uncovered one thing. He actually he knew this, and he glossed over this part about the FBI not getting the servers. He actually knew that, and he fucking glossed over it. But I'll get there. He did release the fact that the Steele dossier was bullshit. Durham revealed the fact that the Steele dossier was done by Christopher Steele, who was hired by the Hillary Clinton campaign to make up a fake dossier, and that all of the FISA warrants were bullshit. But Durham also knew at the time of his report that the FBI had specifically asked, and he had the correspondence. Not only had the FBI asked Michael Sussman for the server, they have the correspondence of Sussman then asking the president of CrowdStrike for the server. So we know these two then later lied under oath in front of Congress, a felony, and nothing will ever happen to these two guys. And you know why Durham didn't reveal that? Aaron Mate, a wonderful reporter for the Gray Zone, award-winning, renowned reporter, one of the few that I still believe in. He I think summed it up perfectly, and he's like, it's because you start talking about the head of the FBI or the head of the CIA being corrupt, and the next thing you know, you shoot yourself in the back of the head twice. Right. I think that's literally what it is. So it's just like Adam Schiff said, they have 6 ways from Sunday to get you.
Oh, that's right. And Adam Schiff, speaking of him, I just gave him hey, you did all these things. You cost the American taxpayers tens of millions of dollars. Everything that came out of your mouth for 6 years was an absolute lie. Here's all the proof that you lied and that you knew you were lying the entire time. So we are going to do nothing. You're censured. To hell. You're censured. What a joke.
Oh, don't
he should be in prison is what he should be. Yeah. And this is the problem. This is the thing that really upsets me the most. Adam Schiff's going to get reelected.
Yes. Because there's no mechanism to hold these people accountable.
None.
It would require Congress to make that mechanism, and they're not about to do that.
No, because, and this is when I say everybody is compromised in Washington, D.C., and I mean everybody. The reason that they're going to allow a just a total piece of shit like Adam Schiff walk and skate and never be held accountable for literally lying to the American people. And they have called him a liar directly. Well, they won't say that he told falsehoods or whatever flowery language they'll do instead of calling him a liar. But he's a liar, and they're saying he's a liar in their own word. It's how they do it. But they're not going to do anything about it. And the reason that the Republicans won't get on board to do anything about it is because the Republicans, and this is why there's no good people in Washington, because they know that they could be next, and they have skeletons in their closet, and they lie too, and they are taking big money from the military industrial complex and big pharma and all this shit, and they don't want their dirty laundry coming out, so they don't hold each other to account for anything that they do. Every committee meeting that we watch is a dog and pony show, and that's it.
Yeah, so for anybody who's not completely, clued in on what we're talking about, after Trump was elected, the whole story about Russiagate, that there was Russia collusion, that there was this whole connection between Russia and the Trump campaign, and blah, 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 blah. That's all been completely debunked. The FBI and CIA have all had to come out and say that that's absolutely not true. So anybody who's still telling you that it is absolutely full of shit. And if you'd like me to show you chapter and verse why, I'd be happy to do so. But for the sake of time,
they lied to the judge in the FISA courts.
We've covered this before, so go back and watch another episode. But the point is, we know that this is true. They lied. It was all bullshit. Adam Schiff was one of the worst of them all. He was out in front of the cameras every day, leading the charge for impeachment of Trump and saying, I have seen with my own eyes the evidence that will indict this man, that will bring him to justice. Meanwhile, if you don't remember, the whole impeachment fell apart. There was a second impeachment on the perfect phone call, the quid pro quo. That was a whole different thing. This is the Russiagate thing.
Right.
It never had any merit whatsoever. Completely fell apart. It was all bullshit from day one. It was all made up from the Hillary Clinton campaign, and Adam Schiff carried the water, and he lied so many times on camera, lied for the American people, caused so much division, so much uproar. It's awful what the man did. He should be in prison at the very least. But even less than that, the idea was they were going to censure him, and they were going to give to him the penalty of half of the $32 million that it cost the United States taxpayers to do this investigation. They were going to charge him for $16 million of it. And while I think that's a radical thing to do, and I don't know if I like the precedent, at the same time, do you have any other mechanism to hold this man accountable? Because I'm all ears. I don't think you do. So this was the one that was ever offered. And a bunch of Republicans went against it because it's not constitutional. Well, you know what? That used to mean something to me, Thomas Massie. But Thomas Massie was the big one making the constitutional argument. And he says, you this is not in the rules. You can't just start making shit up and blah, 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 blah. Well, yeah, because there are no rules to hold Congress accountable. And when he put a tweet out about this, there's this big Twitter page called Cat Turd. And it's this like picture of the cat on the icon. It's a good follow. But anyway, so Cat Turd went hard at Thomas Massie. Like, you are an ineffectual piece of little cuck bitch, like talk shit, mad shit. Cat Turd's has a big enough following that Massie actually fired back. And he was just trying to get cheeky. And he said, oops, looked like I must have stepped in a cat turd. And he had like a cat emoji and the smiley face emoji. And I fired back at Massie, and I'm like, no, I think you stepped in either a pony turd or a dog turd, because the only thing that's going on is dog and pony shows here, right? There's no cats involved. Y'all are putting on dog and pony shows, so if you stepped in something, it's probably that, because y'all aren't going to do shit but stand up there and bloviate and talk and blah, blah, blah. It's another Benghazi. It's another, all the other hearings we've seen where they grandstand, they grill, and they really act like they're going to do something, and then whatever happens.
Well, so
crickets.
And to that point, so there is a junior senator in the United States. His name escapes me. He came out publicly recently on some podcasts that he said he's never running for office again because of a lot of this stuff. And he said the only time that these guys, whether it's Schiff on one side or Hawley or Jordan on the other, that when the cameras aren't there, they're just good old boys smoking cigars, patting each other on the back. It's all an act. The whole thing is an act. No one believes anything that they're saying. And he stopped just short of saying that it's scripted, like that they get together to script it. And the podcast he was on, they were pressing him really hard because they knew that's where he was going, but he changed his mind and decided not to go quite that far. But that's what most people don't understand, is that these guys are all friends. And I think the easiest way is when we watched Nancy Pelosi and was it Lindsey Graham hugging each other? Right? They're supposed to be mortal enemies, and here they are hugging each other. I mean, it's just all such horseshit. And as much as I dislike some of the people in Washington, especially like an idiot like AOC, well, she may be stupid, and she clearly is stupid and has no clue what she's talking about. At least she's authentic. She at least believes the shit that comes out of her mouth. These other people, they don't. They know they're lying and they don't care. She's just a misguided 30-year-old moron who has no clue what she's talking about. She's not going to do anything in Washington because she'll never have the kind of power that it really takes to be as skeezy and as sleazy as all these people are. I'm just so, I don't have the right words to get people to understand that their government hates them. They hate you. They do not want good things for you. They could fix everything so easily if they wanted to, and they have literally no ambition ever to fix a single problem. Because in your lifetime, anybody listening to this, think of one thing that they actually did that did any good, and you won't be able to come up with anything because there isn't. Getting Obamacare, for those of you on the left, that did not improve a single thing, and it put 15 million extra people without health insurance. That's what it did. And now, because of that act, insurance is up over 50% for the average American, period. It did nothing. It hurt. It didn't help. And here's the thing. If we can afford to fight proxy wars and take care of almost 800 bases throughout the world so that we can keep everybody at bended knee to our will, well, then getting healthcare shouldn't be a problem at all, should it? We shouldn't have poor people here. It shouldn't even be an issue. All these things could easily be fixed. You mean to tell me in 50 years we can't fix the problems in the inner city, that they're still killing each other? We've destroyed their nuclear families. Our government is destruction, destruction, destruction. They never do anything for the benefit of anyone but themselves. And I'm just so tired of people acting like the government is trying to help them. You have to be literally fucking mentally retarded to believe that if you're an adult.
The board has no obligation to anyone except for their shareholders, Ed. And that's just how it is, buddy. You don't donate enough money to matter. No. It's just how it works, bro. There's so much. It really, really, really boils down to the military-industrial complex. The war machine runs it all, man. And that should be completely just, painted. The picture should be so easily painted by watching every interaction with Michelle Obama and George W. Bush. Michelle's husband killed more people than George W. So it's their kindred spirits. They're kindred spirits, man. They're sold out to the war machine. They love blowing people up. We now know that the hijackers that drove the planes into the towers were CIA assets. That's all been leaked now. That's all been uncovered, as if we didn't already know it. That was the little bit that was redacted from the 9/11 report. Now it's been leaked. So we know our CIA blew up our own buildings and killed our own people, and then used that as a pretense to get into multiple wars, and wanted to get into multiple more. But then they figured out how to just fly drones and just kill people without actually even telling anybody you were in wars with 7 different countries.
26,000 drone strikes in 8 years under Obama.
46,000, sir. 46,000.
Really?
I'm pretty sure it was
Oh, it was
46.
26,000. But
Either way, holy fuck.
right. And we know an estimated 6 to 10,000 innocent women and children, and multiple hospitals and schools
Yeah,
bombed.
including about 150-person wedding party where there were 0
And
terrorists
let's not
at.
forget the fact that his administration, without them, ISIS never would have had existed. All the lies about Bashir al-Assad and the Syrians, all of it garbage, all of it.
That's what I'm saying. In the early 1900s, 1930s, I think it might have been General Smedley Butler, United States Marine Corps, highly decorated, a U.S. Marine, wrote a book called War is a Racket. And he, chapter and verse, just spelled it out for you. The whole reason behind every war since the Civil, probably the Civil, they've all been for money. And that all the ones going forward will be to just enrich the elite donor class. That's what it's all about. And so much of it goes into it. You may think that this is only Raytheon or Boeing, or the bomb makers, but it's Coca-Cola. It's Johnson and Johnson.
It's Facebook.
It's every major American industry rolls right into the war machine. All this stuff gets put on all of our hundreds of bases across the globe. Taco Bell, McDonald's, like all these places, they're in every base all across the globe. It's healthy for the entire corporate class. It just is. That's what the war machine does. So when you buck the war machine like Donald Trump tried to, they're gonna they're gonna get rid of you quick, man. They are not down for that because that's the health of the elite of the state. That's just what it is.
Well, it didn't help Trump that in his last year in office, that he went to what's the name of that ginormous financial forum that they have every year, where he pretty much said that he's not for globalization. He's for America first. Right. And the George Soros and the Steve Jobs and
the Klaus Schwabs.
Yeah. The Rothschilds, they lost their ever loving fucking minds, and they made it. If Donald Trump will run for president again, I don't see how that's not going to happen. Looking at polling currently, he will not win. Even if everybody in this country voted for him, he will not win. It's just never going to happen. They're never going to allow it to happen.
Mm-hmm. No.
So Joe Biden will miraculously get like 480 million votes in a country that only has 330 million people. And then the majority of the people in this country will go, there's nothing to see here. I don't even see what the problem is.
Not only will Joe rubber stamp every war that they want to do, he'll cash in on it just like he has been on Ukraine. He knew it was coming, so he's been cashing in ever since. But again, about the military industrial complex, it's more than just starting wars. It's more than just, cashing in on these things. They use the military as a pretense to do all kinds of wild shit. For instance, they wanted to create back in 2017, so shortly after President Trump was in office, and he was dealing with all the impeachment shit. Fauci quietly wrote a new approval for gain of function research. Obama had one of the good things Obama did was he had actually shut down gain of function research because he saw how dangerous it was. Yeah, but as soon as he was gone, and as soon as the discord in the Trump administration was involved, Fauci quietly fired it back up again. We started doing the gain of function research. Fast forward to 2018, you had the likes of Peter Daszak, World Health Alliance, and other scientists coming to what's the military bioweapons, DARPA. They came to DARPA asking for funding on behalf of the military weapons industry to develop a bioweapon, which was a coronavirus with a furin cleavage site in it that would allow for a spike protein to implant and make it much more infectious to humans. The DARPA was like, yeah, no, we don't really know about that. We probably shouldn't do that. Maybe you should find another channel for that. And so what did they do? They just sent it over to Wuhan. One thing they picked up from DARPA, though, that a lot of people don't know, and I can't remember what the name is, but RFK Jr. actually revealed this. And when I find the name, I will share it because it's really important. But there's a new technique that DARPA, that the bioweapons industry in America came up with. And it is a way of masking when humans have altered the genome of a virus. They have a way of actually like eliminating your ability to tell if humans have altered the thing. So they developed that in conjunction. All that went over to Wuhan, and then lo and behold, Wuhan is working on all these coronaviruses. They're working on one with almost the identical sequence. They're working on a furin cleavage site. That all this shit, right? And we've been told that the first cases came from Wuhan, and now we just found out because some whistleblowers have come forward and they've talked to, some of the best reporters in my lifetime, Matt Taibbi, Michael Schoenberger. These are legitimate guys, and they've come forward and said that we can actually confirm with you that patient zero, patients 1, 2, and 3, so patient zero, the very first to ever get it to be determined, were the 3 scientists working in the Wuhan lab, working, as John Stewart would say, maybe if fucking Hershey, Pennsylvania gets overloaded with a flood of chocolate, you might look over at the chocolate factory for the problem.
Oh, maybe that's where it's coming from.
And lo and behold, what do you know? Coming from the United States government and big pharma and the military industrial complex was a pandemic that killed a ton of people. And by golly, if the virus itself won't kill you, we'll give you an injection that just might.
That's right. Damn, we didn't get that virus quite deadly enough. Let us help it a little bit. Let's help out.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
So, now that we know this report that is just come out, it's cited, it's clear, the evidence is there. But of course, our the committees, even the people like the Rand Pauls who went hard after Fauci, which I will give him some credit for, they are also in possession of this information. They received this. They probably even had a heads up before it became public that this was going to be coming out. And there still has not been one single fucking subpoena written for any of these people to come in and testify about anything. And there never will be. Dr. Fauci is never going to be held to account for what he did. And by my count, between what happened during the AIDS period in the 80s and the 90s, and Fauci and him, and given his position, refusing drugs that he knew absolutely 100% would help people just so that his could get to market. And then, of course, what happened here through all his lies and obfuscation when it comes to COVID-19, that man literally made the Nazis look like kindergarten teachers by comparison of the millions of people he absolutely killed. There's no two ways about it.
His AIDS drug he pushed killed a bunch of people.
Oh, the Dallas Buyers Club is about that. If anybody's never seen that movie, it's great, but it is about a man's fight against Fauci himself.
Amen. Yep. And anybody who thinks that all this expose that's been written about him by RFK, an entire book cited, impeccably about Anthony Fauci and all these horrific underhanded things he's done. And you think after all this time, he hasn't been sued? If RFK is lying, would he not be run up the ringer in lawsuits? Would Fauci not be all over him if he didn't want discovery?
And
you know what I'm saying?
And if RFKJ, because he's junior, so I like saying RFKJ.
Fair.
Yeah. So RFKJ, not only what you're right, if it was obviously he was lying, and he's a private citizen and he was causing harm to other people, not only would the state governments go out, but the federal governments would go after him. Nobody's doing any of that because they know that he's not lying. It's also the very reason that all of these like Hortez and Fauci and all these pieces of human excrement, they won't get in the same room with him and have a debate about it at all because they know that he will fucking destroy them.
Peter Hotez. Yeah, Dr. Peter Hotez. Thanks for bringing up that fucking clown.
Piece of shit.
So this is a little bitch who was in the entire pandemic, was on CNN getting his little, 2 minutes of fame. And he's just been a shill for pharma his entire life. He's received 40 some odd $1 million in grants from Fauci to do gain of function research. This is a gain of function scientist. So he's basically worked in the labs that Fauci's funded to do all the underhanded shit. So of course he's going to shill for it because he'd be on the hook for it. He'd be liable for some of the dastardly things. So nonetheless, this man had, after RFK showed up on Joe Rogan and let the cat out of the bag about how vaccines are not perfect, and even though RFK has had lots of vaccines and his children have had lots of vaccines, all he's trying to say is that some are bad. And that should be made obvious by the fact that we've had to take many off the market. That should be made obvious by the fact that now revealed that 1 out of 3 polio infections in the mid 1900s was from the vaccine itself, either from a contaminated vaccine or from the fact that kids had a mild polio infection and then were injected with the polio vaccine, which then sent their immune system into chaos. And so either way, we think that 1 out of 3 polio deaths were due to the vaccine. There's been nonetheless, there's been vaccines that didn't do anybody any good, and they just had to take them right off the market because they were killing people. So if you think that all vaccines are just perfect, well, you're an idiot. And you're in a cult, and you should probably think about that. But second of all, if you then acknowledge that if you acknowledge truth that some vaccines have hurt people, well, then you have to acknowledge what Kennedy's saying. You just have to acknowledge that he's saying that some vaccines have hurt people. And I think the COVID vaccine has hurt people. But now enter Peter Hotez. So Dr. Peter Hotez has then responded. He put out a tweet saying, "How dare you, Joe Rogan?" Because Hotez has actually been on Rogan a couple times previously. And Rogan actually took him to task. I'll get back to that. But he's like, "Joe Rogan, how dare you platform this conspiracy theorist and telling all his anti-vax lies?" And so Rogan goes, "Okay, sir, if you want to say that, well, then I challenge you to just come on my show, have a friendly debate with RFK. He's a civil guy. I will put $100,000 into the charity of your choice. No time limit on the debate. Just come here and have a friendly debate." And the guy was like, "No, I don't think so."
No
right?
thanks.
Well, next thing you know, Patrick Bet-David, a bunch of other people jump in. Now this thing's climbing $1.5 million. I think it might be close to $2 million now to charity. That's a lot of freaking money. And this clown still won't do it.
Sure, because he can't argue his own position.
Not just that, I'm pretty sure that like the powers that be, the people who fund him, will not if he ever wants to get another project in his lab funded ever again, he can't do that debate. No. He's not allowed. His masters will not let him because he is captured, just like all of academia.
Yeah, exactly. That's your
mic drop.
Yeah, you're a recovering academic, as you like to say.
Much better off these days. I can speak the truth.
Hortez is a giant piece of shit. The only way that he can look good in any kind of light is because he's standing beside Fauci, and Fauci looks so much worse.
So he's on CNN early on in the pandemic saying, "When you get that shot, guys, you go and get that. It don't matter if it's J&J or what it is." And then it turns out, that's a problem. But if you get that shot, it's done.
You'll never pass it on. You're protected. Your whole family's protected.
Save your grandma. You can go out in public. And then like a couple of months later, it's like, "Well, folks, I've always said we're going to need you're going to need a booster. You're going to need that third shot. I've always said that," even though he said nothing like that.
Right.
And then he's like, "But that's going to be good. We're going to be good with that." And then a few months later, "Well, you're going to go ahead and need to get that second booster. So you're saying 4 now?" Yeah. Go ahead and get that 4, but that's good. We're going to be good at that. A few months later, "We're going to go ahead and need to get that third booster." And then like Mika Brzezinski or some douchebag's like, she's getting confused now, even though she's supposed to be carrying the water too. And she's like, well, wait a minute, is that, you said third booster, so how many is that 5 shots now? And he's like, well, let's not concern ourselves too much with the number.
Right.
And
Just
just
make sure you keep getting them. That's all that matters. Just keep getting the shots, folks. It doesn't matter
give me my
how
money.
you get it. Just keep getting them. The number doesn't matter. And you and I had discussed during the pandemic that ultimately this was going to happen, and the whole idea was to make sure, like the flu vaccine, that everybody had to get a shot every single year for this for the rest of their lives.
Yep.
I will go to my grave without having ever received this vaccination, and pridefully so. Anybody who got this vaccination, I feel sorry for you. I know a lot of people were either scared into it or their jobs were put on the line. And my heart goes out to you that you had to do it, but you don't have to continue to do it. So stop. Just stop.
No.
Now, I mean, even our own CDC now is saying, yeah, if you're under a certain age, you probably shouldn't get this at all anymore. Yeah,
Right.
because you know that you've destroyed the youth in this country. We don't know what the long-term effects are going to be, but they are going to be ugly. And we know that we have just the heart conditions, the autoimmune diseases that this vaccination is creating. The numbers are very clear. Sometimes correlation isn't causation, but in this particular case, it absolutely is. The numbers are clear what was going on before the vaccinations were ever administered. And then we can see a change in numbers that normally could take decades, if not centuries, to occur, happened in less than 2 years. And the only relatable thing that it could have possibly be attributed to are the vaccinations themselves.
I can just look at, there's a handful of little girls who've come up in front of Congress that are in wheelchairs now, and it happened directly after the shot. It's so blatantly obvious they were injured by it. So to just disregard that it's possible,
right.
It's always been asinine, and it's still asinine. And if you're still disregarding it, just like if you're still disregarding the origin of COVID from the lab, you're in a cult, man.
Yeah. So for me, right, the whole cult thing. I mean, for me, it's just if other than the conversation where somebody is still in the bag for this kind of stuff, you're being willfully ignorant and intellectually dishonest, and it's not a good look. And I literally can't stand being in the same room with people like that, because not only do you know they're full of shit, they know they're full of shit, and they say it anyway. And I can't imagine being more intellectually dishonest than that. And it seems that's where we go with everything now. We cannot. My problem with, and this is on the left more than the right, this particular case, is that you cannot have a discussion about anything anymore. If they say that every child needs to have their sex changed to the opposite of what they currently are, and you disagree with that in any way, shape, or form, you are a monster. You need to be shouted down. You need to lose your job. Your whole life needs to be upended, and you need to be tar and feathered because you go against their orthodoxy. And I'm just quite sick and tired of it. And it's over now with the left in particular. It's over every single issue. You either agree or you get to die. That's it. Those are your choices. They will not have a discussion about any of it. Everything is militant now, 100%. And the irony of it is, with BLM, with this transgender shit, with the alphabet soup, the LGBTQ plus, and the plus means pedophile people. Wake the fuck up. All this stuff that's going on, they're so militant about all of it that they've gotten to a point where even people on their side who want to take a step back and go, wait a minute, maybe we should think about this, they turn on them too now. No one is safe from them. And they make up the minority, a very small minority, and we're being strong-armed. And for anybody who's not paying attention, this is how the Nazis went from a small little clan of idiot politicians to taking over an entire country and attempting to take over the entire world. And if nobody's going to stand up, then they absolutely are going to get their way every single time. And if you're not paying attention, Until recently, that's what's been going on. Fortunately, we're starting to see at least some inroads into being able to push back, even if it happens through Budweiser, right? But we're starting to see parents at schools now are stepping up. Things are starting to change a little bit, and that's good. But for those of you on the left who continue to go with your side when you know that they aren't just wrong, but they are most likely criminally wrong, and you stand with them anyway, then you're a useful idiot and you should be ashamed of yourself.
It's funny you bring up Budweiser because it reminds me of something I saw the other day. It's a very interesting conspiracy theory about what took place. There's actually a theory that was but the whole Bud Light thing with Mulvaney was a controlled demolition, basically, of the company. That they essentially knew that would destroy it, which I don't know if they would have that foresight, but it's interesting. So this is somebody that's inside the company. They're high level official inside the company. They've been there for over a decade, and they're claiming that since InBev bought out Anheuser-Busch, Bud Light's was the number one brand for Anheuser-Busch. But InBev is this big multinational corporation. Anheuser-Busch was actually an American unionized company. When the merger happened, the union didn't go away, but InBev sure wished it did. And they've been trying to get it to go away ever since. Bud Light, the division of Bud Light, is like the highest paid with the highest benefits people in any like beer apparatus and like in all of InBev. And that's why they're the thorn in InBev's side. They're the most expensive baby of InBev. And so the theory is that in order to break the brand, break the union, completely disrupt the whole thing and have to reorganize it all, fucking make the thing collapse, make it all eat shit. We can lay a bunch of people off, collapse the union, and we can rebrand it and bring it back. I just thought it was an interesting take.
Okay, so along that line, so for the first time in ever, that Modelo has taken over as number one. But interestingly, Modelo is also owned by InBev.
InBev, I know. That's what I'm like. What are you?
So while Anheuser-Busch, and we can, laud them because they're being punished for what they did, but for InBev, it changed nothing. Now, Budweiser is down billions of dollars. Make no mistake, and the people that are sticking to their guns, and I'm glad that they are. But InBev's world market share really hasn't changed at all.
No, because it just shifts to something else.
In this case, Modelo. So.
Right. Something else they own. I will say this. Kudos to Yuengling. Recently, in, I think, Reading, Pennsylvania, there was a drag queen, all ages drag queen show. And they put it up like it was sponsored by Yuengling. And there was some backlash on Twitter. Yuengling got wind of it. And their first response was, we're not sponsoring this event, and we don't have anything to do with it. Well, they got a little more pushback. Like, well, that's not enough. Like, what do you think about this drag queen all ages thing? And they actually came out and they said, we think that all drag shows should be 18 and up.
Good for them.
Kudos to having just a little bit of morality.
So now just think about this for a second. The fact that even fucking has to be said.
I mean, strip teases should be 18 and up.
So what? We should let kids go to strip clubs too? Just grab your 8-year-old and go to the strip club.
Yeah,
and what if you're a kid show. and if your 8-year-old identifies as an adult, should he be able to do shots and drink beer and smoke cigarettes too?
That's what I'm saying.
I mean, what the hell? Why not?
Transageism, right? Yeah.
Jesus.
I fucking identify as a 21-year-old.
And if somebody identifies as a rapist, does that mean they can rape people because they identify that way?
You could just rape people and identify as a non-rapist.
It's kind of like when the progressive left in this country decided to put Democrat in front of words which made those other words safe, and they don't mean the same thing. Like if democratic socialism. So if I'm a democratic rapist, does that make me less of a rapist? Is that how that works? It's so ridiculous. We are a fucking joke. I mean, it's just,
It's true.
what else can you say at this point? You have to laugh
Yeah.
because otherwise you would cry all day long at
It's a
just how
circus,
sad this
man.
all is. We're
Yeah.
a shit show, man. I mean, just, and I want to make this perfectly clear. This is 100% brought to you by the United States government simply because Donald Trump got elected president of the United States. Now, this shit show was going on, but I mean,
All he did, yeah.
but they put it on steroids. And we literally jumped
right.
50 years, and the destruction they were planning on over the long haul got condensed to the last 6 fucking years.
He made them ramp it up, and that's what made it all like relevant, like right in front of our eyes. And we're like, oh.
This is a man that has been impeached. This is a man who has been impeached twice over what is now provable, not just conjecture. We know was total horseshit. The whole thing was a lie. They even admit
one
now
was
that
a
the whole
scam.
thing was a lie.
Yeah. One was a Hillary Clinton scam.
And now the people that don't like Trump, right, that or the people on the left, they have failed at every measure. They all admit openly that the whole thing was a sham and a lie to begin with. We got Adam Schiff going to hell in a handbasket, or should be, even though he'll survive the day. They wanted to make him pay for all the money they spent because he's so culpable in all this. And now they're doing it again. And all these fucking useful idiots are all going, we got him this time. It's so ridiculous. All I can do is laugh at these people.
Yeah, you got to. The first impeachment was an absolute scam from the Hillary Clinton campaign, and the second impeachment was about a phone call where he was going to withhold money to Ukraine unless they looked into a situation which was not even as bad as what Biden did just 6 years previously, where he withheld money unless they fired a prosecutor that was looking into the company his son sat on the board of.
You can't make this stuff up, right?
And now we know that he got $5 million from said company. Now we know that Biden got $5 million from said company.
And nothing's going to happen about that. His son's never going to be held to account for his crimes. Joe Biden's never going to be held to account for his crimes. The Hillary Clinton will never be held for hers. And by the way, other than Donald Trump, no politician is going to be held accountable. And here's the thing. They are consistent. Donald Trump is not being held accountable for crimes. Donald Trump's being held accountable to lies that they made up. That's what he's being held accountable for things he didn't even actually do. And so they're at least they're consistent. Yeah. They're not, they can always say we never prosecuted or tried to put another politician into jail for the crimes they committed. We only try to do it for the crimes they didn't commit.
Yeah. Only for the setups.
They could stay consistent. It's unbelievable. Every person.
I hate it.
Yeah, even if you consider yourself a democratic socialist or a democratic racist or a democratic rapist, it doesn't matter to me. You still have to at least be honest enough with yourself to just go, holy shit, this is all such bullshit. And for people to still dig in like this, like all this stuff is true, it's maddening to me. I'm glad I live in a part of the United States where literally all my neighbors and the people that I meet, and when I'm out at social events or local eateries or whatever, the people down here are not fooled in any way, shape, or form. I mean, they get that it's terrible and it's a joke. And frankly, it's hard to get people to even want to talk about it because they don't care. They're just like, fuck it.
Well, unfortunately, I'm up here in PA, and they love them some Joe Biden. Well, they at least pretend to, because that's who they voted for, and they have to defend their vote.
You live in an idiot state where the idiots voted in a stroke victim to be a senator. So.
Yeah, and we had a Secretary of Health who was one of the most unhealthy individuals you could ever lay eyes on. He thinks he's a woman. He's obese. He's like none of the pictures of health. Yeah, it's a good time. So it's a good time to be alive. But it's a good time to think about an exit strategy from the Northeast. But anyway.
Here, you want to hear something that's really interesting that I just found out today?
Go for it.
Juneteenth, which, okay, I want to say this.
It's the reason why my bank's closed today.
So Juneteenth is a joke, and this is why. Before people start calling me racist, Juneteenth to me is like the guy who goes to his boss and goes, "Man, I've been working here for 3 years. I've been paying $20 an hour the whole time. I really need a raise. I put in my time. I deserve a raise." The boss can't give him a raise. So what does the boss do? And said, "You know what, man? I can't give you a raise right now, but don't tell anybody else. But I'm going to make you the assistant to the assistant to the assistant of the supervisor. You'll be that. You'll have more power," which of course he doesn't have any. And he's happy. He's like, "Yeah, I'm the assistant of the assistant of the assistant to the supervisor." Not calculating in his head, there's only 4 people in his division. So he's still exactly where he was, and he's still making $20 an hour, and he thinks he has a victory. Juneteenth is what the federal government did to the Black community. "Oh, we can't actually fix, or we're not going to try to help you. We're not going to do anything about your problems that you're crying about, that you actually have a lot of legitimacy and good cases to make. We're going to skip over all that. We're going to give you a day to celebrate." And they were like, "Oh, okay, thanks, man. We appreciate the government so good to us." Morons. This is what's really going on. This came to my attention. The reason I bring this up: Pennsylvania, New York, California, Maryland, New Jersey, Connecticut, Massachusetts, list goes on and on. Illinois, all the lib states, all the big lib states, they have not made Juneteenth in their state permanent. It comes up for a vote, cyclical for them.
Pennsylvania has.
No, I saw that they were on the list. It's not permanent.
My wife worked for the state last year, was off last year.
No, but I'm saying, but they can end it anytime they want, right? They still have to vote for it. They have to make sure that it continues, right? But Texas, Missouri, Florida, Georgia, Mississippi, Alabama, all these hard red states, all of them have made it completely permanent. It's already done.
Well, it started in Texas, so I would expect it. But that's what's funny too. People would think it started in the north and it started in Texas. Yeah, I mean, I kind of like the historical lesson of it, which is that, like,
oh yeah, I get that part of it.
The Civil War was over. The Civil War was over, and the slaves were freed. And then there was, like, for a couple of years, there was a bunch of slaves that didn't even know. They were still freaking held in bondage. And until the word got to them, "Oh, by the way, they freed you a couple of years ago. What the fuck?"
And to be fair, getting word to a slave on a plantation was a really hard thing to do.
How fucked up would that be, though, if you found out you were freed a couple of years ago? You're still in chains.
And it was, and some of it wasn't a couple of years ago. Some of these stayed in slavery without even knowing for up to a decade. Like, they just didn't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's fucking bananas, dude.
Right.
So,
but my point still stands that
was the government, by the way.
Right. But it's still a placation of the government to the Black community to give them something without actually giving them anything.
It's just pandering.
And you know who gets off, right? Are
a bunch of white government employees.
60% of the workers for all these governments are white people. They're the ones who are getting the benefit of it more than the Black people are. It's so stupid.
A bunch of white bank tellers, a bunch of white college professors,
a bunch of white state workers.
Yeah. It isn't the fucking.
It's so ridiculous.
It isn't the blue collar people.
That's the only reason I bring it up. Is this is what that's 3-card Monty, right? We're just we're patting you on the back like we're giving you something that's going to improve your life. It does nothing. And by the way, over the Juneteenth celebratory weekend, in all the major cities, dozens and dozens of people were shot and killed, and hundreds injured.
Yep.
God,
it's almost like you should have. It's almost like you should have elevated the day prior to Juneteenth, which was Father's Day, because that would be really important in the Black community right now.
Could have been, if we didn't euthanize over 40 million Black babies over the last 50 years. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
We can go on. We can go on for forever and ever, and we got to wrap this up.
Fair. Time is up.
So we just can't shut the fuck up. So
too much to talk about.
So last week we had a really good conversation, like we do every week, but there were 2 glaring issues on my end that I need to correct. Alanya Pena, the fighter for the UFC that I raved about, and while everything I said about her was true, except for one thing. She was not 20. She's 30 years old. And I just want to make sure that we get these things right. That is 100% on me. And Calvin Ridley is the wide receiver for the Jaguars that I was referring to when I said Jarvis Landry. So I apologize for those mistakes, and I'm glad to correct them.
Right on. And that's something we will continue to do going forward. We've had mistakes in the past in other casts, and we've wanted to, reiterate that. And so now we've just decided we're going to, at the back end of every cast, if we have something from the previous one that we need to clarify because we made a mistake, we'd like to do that, because part of being a man is owning when you're wrong and trying to clarify that.
And to be one other thing, being a man is something that we're both really good at, because we're 2 of the 7 men left on earth. But all joking aside, our podcast, Mancast, isn't worth a shit if we're not checking ourselves when we're wrong, because then we become the very thing that we're railing against, which are people that are totally full of fucking shit. And to our audience, if you hear something or see something, if you want us to cite it, let us know. And if you believe that we're wrong, please let us know. And if we are, we will make that correction. And
honestly, if you have a big enough issue with what we're saying and you would like to actually come and debate us, let us know. We'll let you come on with us, and you can give us your side. Be happy to go back and forth with you. And if you have new information for me, I'm willing to learn. Always willing to learn. Always willing to change my mind.
The last thing I want to do is spread disinformation, because there's enough of that going around.
That's right.
What we try to do,
I don't want to be a hypocrite.
What we try to do here, obviously, we have our own personal takes on things, and we give them and generally say that's what's happening when it's happening. But when we're getting into things, we try to be as well researched and as well thought out as we can, and so that the information is true and correct. So if you have issue with us, we would love for you to bring it to our attention, but don't be surprised when we don't have any problem citing the information itself. We're not just out here spitballing it. We actually are learned people who do a lot of research and who know what the hell we're talking about. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here talking about it.
100% willing to back up what I say anytime. Just ask.
So that's why we're also willing to debate it, because we know what the fuck we're talking about.
Unlike Peter Hotez, you cowardly little bitch.
Piece of garbage.
So with that.
So it was another good show. I hope everybody has been duly informed. Please think for yourselves, research yourselves, figure it out. It's not hard. I know for people, time can be difficult, but instead of every now and again, just if you hear something that hits you wrong, just make sure you check it out instead of just going along with the cult. Just leave the cult behind. That's all I'm saying. So please subscribe and hit a like. We would appreciate it greatly. And for that, our banana bread is made. It's time to eat. We're out.
Later.